Donegal, 19 points. Kerry are the All-Ireland Senior Football Champions. First of all, congratulations to Kerry from a Dublin fan. You bastards, you absolute bastards. But look, fair play. I have to say it. You know, you're deserved champions. Absolutely deserve it. You walked the floor in this final, played some absolutely phenomenal football, and from the quarterfinal onwards, look, you've been by far the best team in the country. There's no getting away from that. Very, very worthy champions. Phenomenal team. David Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, even some of the other players as well. Like phenomenal stuff from Kerry. And in particular today, they were absolutely tremendous. Joe O'Connor around midfield, Gavin White as well at wing back. Like what a game Gavin White had, and what a start to the game he actually had as well. Really dictating the pace of the game early on. But look, I have to say congratulations to Kerry. Commiserations to any Donegal fans who are watching this. What happened to you is like just a good bit off the pace today. Look, Kerry were absolutely brilliant, and to be fair to Donegal, like once you settled into the game, once you kind of got through that opening 20 minutes, I thought you actually did quite well. You know, you conceded I think about 14 points in the opening 20 minutes, and you know, you only conceded 112 after that, and that goal at the end probably comes as a consequence of chasing the game. So it was just that opening 20 minutes where Donegal looked edgy, they looked nervy. And look, I predicted this game to be a bit cagey at the start. I thought both teams would start the same way that Donegal started, essentially. A little bit nervy, a little bit cagey, but no, right from the offset, Kerry were absolutely brilliant. You know, they win the early points, you know, straight away from the throw-in through Dylan Gainey. Gavin White obviously gets a couple of points as well. Gavin White obviously played his part in that opening point as well. And Donegal struggled, and I have to say, very, very naive and somewhat arrogant from Jim McGuinness today. Look, I love Jim McGuinness. I love him is a bit far, to be fair. I definitely don't love him. Words kind of flew out of my mouth there. I like Jim McGuinness, look, as even despite, you know, the humiliation that he served up my own county in 2014. I do like Jim McGuinness. He's innovative. He brings different ideas to Gaelic football. He's something different, and I think we need more of that in Gaelic football, in my opinion. But I think he got it wrong today. He absolutely got it wrong today. The setup was completely wrong right from the get-go. They set up zonally, defending the arc, but they were letting Kerry just have so much time and space in front of Donegal. And the problem is, like, when you play that zonal system, you have to get everything absolutely spot on. Do you know what I mean? And the tackling, the turnovers need to be intense. But they sort of said to Kerry, like, look, we're going to let you have the ball in front of the arc, and it's up to you to break us down, or if you want to take the 2 pointers and take the chances, go ahead. Wrong team to do that too, because David Clifford kicks 2 phenomenal 2 pointers back to back in the 8th and 11th minute. And all of a sudden, it's like Donegal's game plan and setup just didn't work at all. And it was just, they looked a little bit off the pace as well. Maybe a lot of the games that they've played this year caught up with them a little bit, but in terms of tackling, in terms of intensity, they weren't really there. They struggled to get Michael Murphy involved in the game. I thought Michael Murphy as well didn't look his sharpest or his best, and look, it could be down to the fact that, you know, look, he is, you know, he's 35 years of age. He's no spring chicken, but there was that one moment where Donegal turned the ball over, and Michael Murphy he received the ball kind of on the turn, and he had a bit of space in front of him, and there could have been a half chance for a goal, and he just couldn't really get, you know, you were kind of thinking, run, you know, put the back burners on, and we couldn't really see that. And full credit has to go to Kerry, because they dictated the game. They found ways through. And look, there was a strong narrative, obviously, throughout the entirety of the year that Kerry are a one-man team. And I think, look, prior to the All-Ireland quarter-final, there was only one player, one forward, in my opinion, who was of the standards of Kerry football, and that was David Clifford. Look, Sean O'Shea wasn't really in it too much. Paddy Clifford was injured. And look, Joe O'Connor was phenomenal around midfield, but today, they were all outstanding. Look, David Clifford, we have to mention, he scored 9 points. But Dylan Gainey, I thought, a really, really good game. 3 points from him. Really stood up. Some question marks as to whether he would start. Maybe Paul Gainey would come in. There was question marks over that, but he was outstanding. Sean O'Shea was very good. Paddy Clifford was very good. And just so naive from Donegal to leave that space in front of the arc and just let Paddy Clifford and Sean O'Shea dictate the pace. It was very, very similar what Armagh did versus Kerry. And it was kind of somewhat similar in that opening 20 minutes where Kerry were just turning Donegal over time and time again. And honestly, you were getting worried for Donegal that this would maybe go astray. But Donegal settled a bit into it. They got a couple of nice points from Conor O'Donnell, Shane O'Donnell, Michael Murphy kicked a couple of scores as well. And there was moments in the second half where you thought maybe Donegal are turning the screw a little bit. There was a big moment when they brought on Patrick McBurty and he had an effort for a 2-pointer that went wide. That would have brought it back, I think, to a 2-point game at that stage. That was obviously huge. They did have injuries as well. Like Kieran Thompson goes off. Roy McHugh goes off as well. And Donegal were chasing their tails. And look, Jim McGuinness even said it himself. Like they were, every time it looked like maybe in the second, Donegal would start turning the screw. Kerry would respond. And Kerry did the majority of the work in the first half. They just needed to keep chipping away at the scoreboard. And they did do that in fairness to them. You know, they kept the ball kind of going with some brilliant points. Sean O'Brien as well deserves massive credit around midfield. Joe O'Connor, again, another phenomenal performance. Some of the catches, the wins on kickouts. Look, David Clifford will win Footballer of the Year. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think you can deny that, in my opinion. He's been absolutely phenomenal this year. I even tweeted out, I think David Clifford is not human. I think he's an alien because he's just so good. I think he had the ball for like 30 seconds in the first half was the official like clock that you know, he had possession of the ball and he ended up with 7 points. Just absolutely outrageous from David Clifford, the man for the big occasion, and what a season and year he has had in a Kerry jersey this year. And yeah, Donegal couldn't contain him, but as I was saying, they were leaving space for Paulie Clifford, space for Sean O'Shea as well. And yeah, and I thought towards the end, Donegal just panicked a little bit. They were forcing 2-pointers then when they hadn't been throughout the game. And I think overall, like Donegal just didn't take enough risks, didn't take enough chances. They were too passive in how they played. I think there is a bit of a criticism maybe of McGuinness that he maybe hasn't adapted to the new rules. They defend the arc, and that's their sort of motto in terms of how they play. They defend the arc very, very well. And they say to opposition teams, if you want to take the chance on, by God, go and do it. And, you know, teams will score 2-pointers. They'll invite the chance on. They'll invite them to lose possession. And look, maybe against the likes of Louth, Monaghan, Meath, you'll get away with that. And look, they were a little bit more ferocious, I thought, at times through Ulster, but they were inviting the pressure on. And I think against the Kerry team that are so deadly, it's dangerous. It's dangerous because you're going to get punished in that regard. And yeah, like 1 point in the end in the last 10 minutes, even looking at it here from Dara O'Boyle, they were creating kind of a couple of opportunities. They didn't have one goal chance at all in this game. Balls being floated in were aimless, toothless. They were losing possession, and they just kind of lost the mill of themselves. And Donegal probably actually haven't been in the position too much this year where they've been chasing a game. They've often been the team to kind of hold on. But as I said, I think McGuinness got it wrong. Look, I think for Jim McGuinness, as I said, he's one of the smartest minds in Gaelic football. And I think this will be a tough defeat for him to take. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he'll stick around with this Donegal project. And I think he will be here for the foreseeable future, to be honest with you. Look, there will be question marks over whether could that be it for Patrick McBurty. Will Michael Murphy stick around for another year? I'm not sure. In saying that, though, there is still a talent there in Donegal to push on and kick on next year. Whether they can get over the line and win an All-Ireland is hard to know. I look at this Kerry team, to be honest with you, and the way that they've played this year, the standards that they've played from the quarter-final onwards, if they play like that again next year, no one's getting anywhere near them. Like, absolutely nowhere near them. Like, it's almost frightening and scary watching them at times, like how quick they would move the ball, the pace at which they would play with. David Clifford, obviously, kind of popping points over. And it's like, you're forgetting that they had injuries, like no Toig Morley, he comes on towards the end, no Tom O'Sullivan, German O'Connor comes on. Like, they've had a lot of injuries as well. And I think this Kerry team are only going to get better as well. And I think we could be, you know, we've seen it before. Look, when teams are kind of at the early stage of their development, sometimes they can break the ceiling. If they're good enough, they'll get that All-Ireland win. But winning back-to-back is always the toughest thing. It's always the hardest thing. And only the truly great teams are able to do that. I think this Kerry team could go and do that now, to be honest with you. I think they could go and win 2-3 in a row, to be honest with you. We all thought it would happen back in 2022, but it just never really transpired. I think it was down to the likes of Dublin coming back in the mix 23. Let's not forget they only beat them by the smallest of margins. Armagh as well, kind of rose up last season. So Kerry only lost to the eventual All-Ireland champions. But yeah, looking at it and thinking who can stop them next season, it's going to be hard to know. It's interesting to see. Looks like Jack O'Connor is potentially going to step away, which is going to be interesting. I think a lot of people did expect that. Who will come in? Will it be Eamon Fitzmaurice? Rumours about Tomas O'Shea. Kieran Donaghy recently stepped away from Armagh. Does he come in as manager of Kerry? That's going to be interesting to see as well. So Kerry are in absolutely fine steads. And look, as I said previously, David Clifford will win Footballer of the Year. But Joe O'Connor, I mean, like what a year this man has had. I think he's won man of the match in like 4 or 5 games this year. Like, and the goal at the end, the fact he gets the goal and gets what was, I think, the final score of the 2025 All-Ireland Football Championship is only fitting because he has been absolutely brilliant this year. A Rolls Royce of a midfielder. He has the physical presence. He can kick points. He can set up plays around him. He reminds me of Brian Fenton, to be honest with you, a little bit, and how he plays. He's probably not as calm and composed as a Brian Fenton, but he plays a little bit differently in the fact that he's more of a runner than a Brian Fenton, but he has that physical presence. He's excellent on kickouts, and then he can chip away with points and goals as well. So yeah, no, he was absolutely phenomenal. And look, as I said, Gavin White deserves it. I think he might have won man of the match on. I didn't see who won man of the match in this game, to be honest with you. I think Gavin White deserves a special shout as well. 3 points, right from the get-go. And look, Kerry came flying out of blocks, right from the get-go, and Donegal just could not deal with it at all. And Gavin White was instrumental in that, in my opinion. So crushing blow for Donegal, setback for them. Look, overall, still a very good year for Donegal, winning Ulster, getting back to an All-Ireland final, their first since 2014. But I think as a squad and as a group, they'll need to learn from it. They'll need to come back stronger next year. Kerry will be there, no doubt about it. There'll be other teams back in the mix as well. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal stuff from Kerry. We'll run through the comments here. D. Walt says the win over Armagh paved the way for Kerry. Absolutely it did. And I think Donegal, as I've said previously, fell into those same traps. They fell into the same traps. Shane says exactly, Donegal haven't evolved from last year. Kevin says a rather disappointing All-Ireland final for a neutral. I was hoping for a tit-tat edge of your seat battle between both sides. Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree with you there, Kevin, as a neutral. And obviously someone who, as a Dublin fan, I wanted Donegal to win. There's no question about that. But you wanted a close game. You wanted a competitive game. You wanted it to be end-to-end. And it felt like after 15, 20 minutes as this game was over. And look, fair play to Donegal for making it a bit more of a contest than what it seemed it was going to be, because Kerry were 8 points up, after, about 15, 16 minutes. You were thinking, Jesus, like if Donegal aren't careful here, this could get to 15, this could get to 20. They kind of settled more into the game after that. But I do agree with you as well. It wasn't quite the... People were talking about this being the best All-Ireland final of all time and this being an absolute classic. And I don't think we quite got that, to be honest with you. I think Donegal really struggled with Kerry. And it's mad, all this talk about, running games and kicking games. Like Kerry ran at Donegal numerous times in this game, and I don't think Donegal were expecting it. I think Donegal... set up like as if Kerry were gonna play a kicking game, but Gavin White running through the middle, Dylan Gainey, and Donegal just couldn't live with it. They couldn't deal with it at all. Gaelic Guy says Donegal were really poor, could have been 15 plus. End of McGuinness and Murphy for me. So big shout there from Gaelic Guy. Porrick says Kerry could now go on and win 3 in a row or so. They're ahead of all the teams now at this stage. Absolutely. Look, and they need to get the next managerial appointment right. I think as well, Paddy Clifford, I seen his interview kind of post-match saying that he felt like the team were disrespected and everything else. And look, I completely understand it from his point of view. A lot of that disrespect actually came from within the county of Kerry as well. So much so that David Clifford had to come out and sort of mention that the fans had to turn up and was begging the fans to kind of turn up a little bit. And it didn't really feel like there was much of a buy-in amongst the Kerry supporters, which is disappointing to kind of hear at the same time. But I think if this Kerry team can play to their potential, and play how they've played. Look, they're not always going to play like that. They're going to have off days and different things like that. There's no question about that. But they do have the potential to win 2-3 in a row. Look, there's other teams in the mix. Armagh will be back in the mix next year. Tyrone will improve, in my opinion. Donegal will still be there. Galway will be back in the mix next season. I think those are the closest competitors right now, it must be said. I think Dublin are a good bit off. I think Mayo are a good bit off. See what happens with Derry. Maybe Kieramina coming in there could maybe galvanise them a little bit. But I still think Kerry are a good bit ahead of the rest of the teams now and could very well go on and dominate. Absolutely. Gaelic Guy says Tyrone and Armagh, if they get things right, could be the only ones who could challenge. But even then, Kerry would be a great force to stop. Possibly me too. And could see Kerry creating a 3-4 in a row. Yeah, it's hard to kind of I can't envisage it, but I don't, you know what I mean? As a Dublin fan, I don't want to see it. But yeah, look, Meath as well. Meath could be in the mix. Meath, coincidentally, the only team to beat them in the championship this year. And I think as well, I was watching the game with a couple of friends and I was saying, I do think that Meath result helped Kerry massively, to be honest with you. I think it did them the world of good because they had a bad defeat. They had everyone writing them off. And, very similar to the 2009 All-Ireland final or All-Ireland season where Kerry were being written off and everyone was doubting them. And, I think we've all learned a bit of a lesson for writing them off. Look, I've seen it down the years in the past before where Kerry have been written off, but I did think that this time around it was more justified. I thought there was enough of a sample size there from the group stages, from Munster, from the league. Although they won the league, they weren't. There was one stage where it was looking like Kerry could be relegated. Like Dublin beat Kerry in their own backyard. They had a couple of other disappointing results as well, like where you were a little bit concerned for Kerry. But from the quarterfinal onwards, they've been phenomenal. And look, that's ultimately where it matters the most. And it is interesting. You think back to 23 when Dublin won it, they were similar up until that quarterfinal stage where they were very poor. You think of Armagh last year, like they weren't setting the world alight really, probably until about the semi-finals. You know what I mean? There's a lot of games in this, and I think you do need to kind of wait until like the quarterfinal, semi-final stage before you can really say who is the definitive favourite. That way, because things change very, very quickly, and teams are waiting. But yeah, phenomenal result from a Kerry perspective. Congratulations to them, All Ireland champions once again, number 39 now as well. So they're edging even closer to the big number 40, which would be an incredible feat for them. For Donegal, look, will it be the end of Jim McGuinness, as some people have suggested there? I don't think so. I don't think you come back and you get the team this far to then step away. I think he will still be around for a good more years, to be honest with you. But it's a tough one to take. And as I said, I think his approach in this game was a little bit naive. Like, look, it's very, very hard to stop Clifford and everything else, but I think they should have gone man-to-man a little bit more, in my opinion. And they should have taken it to Kerry and try and win the game. It felt like to me they were more focused on not losing it. And coincidentally, then the game was probably done after 15, 20 minutes. So disappointing there from a Donegal perspective, but Kerry, like some of the football that they play as well, and even as a dub, like watching it, you can't, you have to tip your hat off and say they play some phenomenal football. And it would make you jealous, to be honest, with some of the football that they play. Sean O'Shea as well, outstanding. And look, you could see, like with Paddy Clifford's post-match interview, even Jack O'Connor as well, he threw a little sliding towards Cork as well, which for any Cork fans, the likes of Matthew and those lads, geez, you feel sorry for them. They even Jack O'Connor's throwing shade out here as well. But I can't even remember the point I was going to make. But yeah, like Kerry just play phenomenal football. They play some brilliant football. And you could see the anger, you could see the venom in their play, the celebrations and everything else. It looked like being written off and being disregarded by everyone lit a fire in their belly. And they haven't looked back since that moment. Gaelic Ice is hoping for a better final next year. A bit of a disappointment this year. Yeah, look, it still was better than last year's final. Do you know that way? It was still more entertaining that way. You're not always going to get a super competitive final, unfortunately. But yeah, I do agree with you. It was, at least last year, it was a bit more kind of down to the wire, but this year it was a bit more quite one-sided, and it kind of has been that way in a lot of games, really, probably from the quarterfinal onwards. You know what I mean? Even the preliminary rounds were quite one-sided. Quarterfinals had some interesting games, but semi-finals onwards have been very, very one-sided, haven't they? So it has kind of been disappointing in regards to that. But yeah, look, it is a wrap for the inter-county football season. We will be back tomorrow to break down the game a little bit more in more detail and kind of discuss the aftermath, the talking points, everything else, and kind of break it down from there. But do let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. For any Kerry fans watching, enjoy your night, enjoy the celebrations. For any Donegal fans, disappointing, but I do think he'll be back in the mix next year. But I do think the big question is, you know, who can stop this Kerry team? Because I think they do have the potential to dominate now over the next couple of years. But let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. And until the next one, speak to you all later.